Hi, brothers and sisters. This is Mary Hernandez with Genesis Kingdom with part 2 of Two Tables. Well, yeah, I had written at first the written 2 table stones, but I went ahead and did the 2 table stones. So with that being said, now I am in Deuteronomy 4, and then I'll close it up. It says, "Now therefore hearken, Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgment, which I teach you, for you to do them, that you may live, and then go and possess the land of the Lord God it says that the Lord God of your fathers given you." And it also cross-reference to Romans 10:5. You know, that's what we're doing as we're journeying into the promised land. We're taking territory, removing the darkness, restoring the land that he had promised our fathers, that the enemy has stolen inheritance, stolen lands. They were faking deeds, IDs, acting like it was us. And that's what we're doing on this journey. And on this journey is you preserving your soul, no sin, because it tries to stop you. And that tells you in Judges, all in Judges, it tells you how when we went and played harlot, out there we sold ourselves for 7 years, another 7 years, and another 7 years. Yeah, that's what it means. It says, "Now therefore hearken, all Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgment, which I teach you, for you to do them, that you may go live, and go in and possess the lands that the Lord God of your fathers given you. That you shall not add unto the word in which I command you, but neither shall you diminish," it says, "in aught from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. For your eyes have seen that the Lord, and because of Baal-Porah, that the man that followed Baal-Porah is the Lord of God, that had destroyed them from among you that were pagan gods. But that you did cleave unto the Lord your God, are alive in every one of you, and every one of you to this day." You know, because we continue not going in the ways of the world and following under other gods, and God preserved us, God kept us, God kept giving us the victory as we continue to level up. It says that your eyes have seen the Lord and did what the Lord did because of Baal-Porah. For all the men followed Baal-Porah, and the Lord thy God had destroyed them from among you. That you should cleave unto the Lord your God are alive, every one of you to this day. Behold, I taught you the statutes and judgment, even as the Lord your God commanded me, that you shall do so in the land, rather you go and possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom, your understanding in the sight of the nations, that you shall hear the statutes and say, surely this is a great nation, a wise understanding people. For what nation is there that it is great, who hath God nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him for? What nation is there so great that he hath statutes and judgments so righteous, and all the law that I set before you until this day? Only take heed to thyself, and keep thy soul diligently. At least don't forget the things which thine eyes have seen, and at least they have departed from thy heart all the days of thy life. They teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons, especially the day that thou stoodest before the Lord thy God in Horeb, when the Lord has said unto me, gather me the people together, that I will make them and hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, that they may teach their children. You know, again, I'll say it over again. I am so glad that my grandma raised me, and I hate to call her grandma because to me she's my mom. She raised me. I was given to her at 3 months old. So she raised me in Laredo, Texas. So, you know, I am so thankful that God picked her to raise me. You know, it's almost like you hear the story of Moses. You know, a 3-month-old, even though God worked in mysterious ways and had a beautiful woman that took care of him, that was from a pagan world. You know, but she took him in as his. My mama took me in as his. To me, that's my mom. And from very little, she rooted God, Jehovah in me. Since we're a little girl, heaven is real. You know what I'm saying? They talked about him as if he was right there with us, and he was. So I knew always, I tell you the story about the gum. My auntie, I got in her purse, and I sat there and I took her gum. She had gum. She had a big pack. Do you remember those zebra cakes that they come in every flavor? So I grabbed them and I started putting in my mouth. And I was eating one after another, the flavors. And my mouth was my cheeks were so big. I looked like a chipmunk. Because she started roaming around, went to go get some gum, and there wasn't no gum because I had it all. I was like all fat. And I was like, man, I heard her and I took off running. I was like, man, I jetted. I was like, here she comes. Because she was mean. I took off running and they knew. They knew because I took off running. They were like, she goes, it's that little shit. And it was. My mama goes, hi, Rebecca. Because she called me. She goes, hi, Rebecca. She goes, come here. I was adopted. They changed my name. She said, come here. So I go running to her. So I go running to her. And, I go running away from it. And she comes and she said, Mija. I said, what, Mama? And she said, did you? And I said, and my cheeks were full. I said, she goes, Mija. And I said, and I opened my mouth. It was so full of gum. I was in such trouble. My mom goes, no, Mija. She goes, you don't steal. She goes, God is going to get mad at you. She put me in a corner and she said, pray and ask him for forgiveness. Ever since we were little. And my auntie was living. And I was all like, I wasn't going to give her the gum. I love gum. But I got in trouble for it. So as a young girl, baby, I was rooted knowing God. What are you teaching your babies? Teach them right. If you were in a pagan world and you have been saved, don't pass out the same traits. Grow your family tree and grow it right. I could have chosen, and I'm going to say this more respectfully to Bertha. I was 11 years old when they went to go get me from Laredo. And my mom, how can I say this? I was raised knowing that my grandma was my mom. That was my mom. That's who raised me. That's my mom. It wasn't until I was 11 years old that Bertha came with my stepfather and said, hey, I want to take Becky back. She's my daughter, so I want to take her and bring her. That's how I got here to Colorado. And she said, I want to take her home with me. And I remember I was like, at first I was like, yeah. She goes, you'll have your own room. You'll have all the clothes you want. You don't have to share your clothes. So at first I was young. It's like, okay. Well, then they said, well, we have something to tell you. So they set us in this big old table that had a mental on it, right? And they kicked us. Usually they kick us out. So whenever we knew that it was a family, that's where we get a family meeting. That's where I get it from. Family meeting. The kids are all like, oh no. So when they would say family meeting and we would move, we would hide underneath the table to listen to what they were going to, what were they going to say? Well, that day they invited me on the table and I was like, what? So I said, on the table, and they actually said, Licha, because we call Bertha Licha, is not your sister. Because we said that's the older sister, so that was my sister. That's the way I would call her. They said, actually, she's not your sister. She's your mom. What? I was like, I know you were my mom. I was little, and I threw a little fit, and I cried. So they said, well, she wants to take you back. She wants to, raise you. I was 11 years old. And I remember crying that I didn't want to go with her, but they ended up bringing me, and that's how I got here to Colorado. I remember just being so devastated, and that's what happened. That's how they got custody of me, and I got adopted, and they changed my name. So that's where it is. And that is the truth. So with that being said, I was raised properly with respect and morals and knowing my Father Jehovah. And in the little time that I was around Bertha, it was bad. It was like my hell started at 11 years old, the time I made it over here to Colorado. And it's how you decide to grow your tree. I could have sat there and done the same thing that, I decided to be the mother that Marcella was, that she loved us unconditional, taught me God, loved God, have respects, morals, and values, marriage values, family values, work values, school values, everything. She was on all the aunties. All of them are still married to the same person. All of them had careers. All of them finished school. Some of them went to college. That's how we were raised. You know what I'm saying? Is that you're independent. Say it all false, that your marriage don't make it. You're being home, being that housewife. If you could do that, more power to you. Go for it, because that's also a hard job. But you also have to have something to fall back on. If that don't work out, then what? You're stuck and you have to depend and be in a marriage that's beating you up or whatever reason it is. You also got to have your own work ethics. You got to also be dependent. You know what I'm saying? Always dependent. Without Father in this world, we're nothing. Without Father in a marriage, we're nothing. We're nothing. So I decided to follow the tree of my mama Marcella and not be like Bertha. So just kind of remember that, Now it says, and ye that come near and stood under the mountains, and the mountains that are burned with fire, and unto the midst of heaven, the darkness clouds that were the thick darkness. What did he say? There will be light in Genesis, because it was evil. Nothing but darkness in this world. So as the children of God, we come in here with the light in the darkness. And he removes the darkness, evil people, elements, infilators that are ungodly angels. And you that come near and stood under the mountains, and the mountains burned with fire in the midst of heaven, but with darkness and clouds and thick darkness. The Lord spake unto you in the midst of the fire, and you heard the voice of the words, and no multitude, but only heard a voice. And he declared unto you the covenant, which it commanded, that you do perform, and even to the 10 commandments, he wrote them upon the 2 tables of stones in agreement. And then the Lord commanded. Deuteronomy 1. I'm almost done. I might have to do a part 2, video 3. This is another time to teach you the statutes and judgment, that you may do them in the land, rather you go over and possess it. Take therefore a good heed of yourself, that you sow no manners multitudes of the day of the Lord. Speak unto you in Horeb in the midst of fire. At least ye corrupt yourselves, make you a graven image of the multitude of any figure, likeness a male or a female, the likeness of any beast, and in the earth, and likeness of any wings of fowl that flieth in the air, the likeness of any creeping thing in the ground, that is a fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And everyone knows that's Pharaoh, that God made hell for Pharaoh. Now it says, and at least thou lift up thine eyes unto the heaven, and thou seest the sun and the moon, and the stars, and even the heavens that should have been driven to workmanship, that you serve them, in which the Lord God has given you the nations under the whole heaven. That's what your inheritance. That's what your birthright is, that he's putting you back into. And states and cities and vineyards that belong to you. And all you have to do is follow the 10 commandments and preserve your soul until we get into the promised land. That's it. No sin. And you go from a blood covenant to washing and cleansing of the word of the Bible. Following the 10 commandments. He tells you every time. He's had people to do it, but there's also a demonic world and also our own. Remember, I always said that. We also have our own addictions that we need to ask our Father to help us and heal us from it. You had to remember that. It's there. Ask him. He helps you. He helped me. At least if thou lift up thine eyes to the heaven, and thou seest the sun and the moon, and the stars in the heavens, shouldest thou be driven in workmanship to serve. And the Lord thy God has driven them into the nations under the whole heaven. But the Lord has taken you and brought you out of the furnace, and even out of Egypt. Out of hell we were brought, because we were in hell. Because of sin. And as you promise going on, hell is fighting for your soul. Stop sinning, because they get to keep it. And then here comes God, has to wait another 7 years. Stop sinning, because that door is going to get shut. And it tells you in Revelation, out of the 10 virgins, 5 are going to stay behind because they decided to go after the things of the world. And you know how that's going to end. But the Lord has taken you out and brought you out of the iron furnace and even onto Egypt and onto the people of the inheritance unto this day. And you got to remember that